In this lesson, we're going to learn how to apply the order of operations as well as the power rules to evaluate exponential expressions. There are three things that we need to remember. We need to recall the order of operations. The first thing you're going to evaluate is anytime you have parentheses, you're going to evaluate the parentheses. Then you're going to apply exponents. The third thing, multiplication or division. And we're always going to read left to right as we evaluate expressions. If multiplication comes before division, then you multiply. If division came first, you would divide and then multiply. The same for addition and subtraction. Adding and subtraction is always the last operation that you do in an expression. Again, it depends on which comes first from left to right. Then recall your exponential rules. Anything raised to the 0 power is 1. If you have a negative exponent, you need to reciprocate it. The product rule tells us to add exponents. The quotient rule tells us to subtract exponents, the top minus the bottom. The power to a power rule simply says that you will multiply exponents. Please be careful when you're substituting in a value for a variable. If the value is negative, you definitely want to have a good math practice of including parentheses around that value. Let's look at our first example. Recall that adding and subtracting are the operations that separate a term from a term. So this first expression has two terms, and we're going to evaluate each of these. I'm just going to work left to right. In this term, there's just one operation, exponents. So -2 times -2 times -2 is a -8. Then we're going to evaluate the second term. Inside the second term, we have exponents and division, and you do exponents first. So 3 to the third is 27, and then we still have the divided by 9. So I still need to simplify this term here. So I have -8 plus 27 divided by 9 is 3, and then I end up adding lastly, and I get -5. Our example number 2, let's circle our terms. In this expression, we have 3 terms. We're going to go left to right, evaluating inside each term. 12 divided by 2 is going to give me 6. 4 squared is 16. -2 to the third is -8. And then I'm going to add or subtract, in this case, from left to right. 6 minus 16, -10, minus 8 is -18. Example 3. There's a lot going on here, but I still only have 2 terms. This subtraction is what divides it. Inside this term, we have exponents, multiplication, and exponents. So we have to do the 2 exponents first, and then we will multiply. So 1/8 raised to the 0 is 1. -4 raised to the -2. To simplify the negative exponent, we're going to have a fraction, and then we have -4 squared gives us +16. Here we simply have 1/16. We still need to simplify this term, and 1 times 1/16 is 1/16 minus this 1/16, and we get 0. Number 4, we have 1, 2, 3 terms. I'm going to go ahead and use my power rules to simplify these, and then I will evaluate. So 2 to the third times 2 to the second is 2 to the fifth. 4 to the fifth divided by 4 to the third, I'm going to apply the quotient rule. I get 4 squared. And a power raised to a power, I'm going to multiply the exponents and get 3 to the fourth. Now, I'm going to evaluate each of these exponents. I have 3 terms still. 2 to the fifth is 32. 4 squared is 16. And 3 to the fourth is 81. I'm going to subtract 32 minus 16 is 16 plus my 81. That looks like 97. Number 5, again, I'm going to circle my terms. I'm going to simplify using any power rules that apply. My quotient rule, 6 to the second. power to a power, 2 to the 6th, and anything raised to the 0 is 1. We're going to simplify 6 squared, 36. 2 to the 6th is 64 minus 1. 36 plus 64 is 100, minus 1 gives me a value of 99. Number 6, I have two terms. We're going to apply the power rules. We have a power raised to a power. Here we are subtracting exponents because it's the quotient rule. We're going to be very careful here. This is 2 minus -3. So that's 2 to the 5th. Now we're going to evaluate 5 to the 0, which is 1, and 2 to the 5th is 32, and it gives us a total of 33. Now the last set we're going to take a look at, we are going to be given the value that our variable is. We are going to substitute it in, being careful, especially when we have a negative value. But before we do that, we are going to simplify the expression and then substitute to evaluate. So here we simply have 3 times 2, which is 6. And then we have the product rule. We are multiplying like bases, so we add exponents. Before we substitute in, I'm going to go ahead and evaluate the negative exponent. And I'm going to move it to the denominator. And now I'm going to substitute in. And again, a good math practice is to use parentheses when substituting. -2 times -2 is +4, and then I simplify that and I get 3/2. Number 8, again, we're going to simplify before we substitute. So 18 divided by 6 is 3. I'm going to apply the quotient rule. 3 minus 5 is -2. I'm going to, again, simplify the negative exponent. The 3 has an exponent of an understood 1. It stays where it is. I'm going to reciprocate x to the -2, and it becomes x to the +2. I'm now going to substitute in -3 for x using parentheses. I have 3 on top. -3 times -3 is +9, and I end up with 1/3. And lastly, again, we have a power raised to a power. Now remember, every factor of this expression has an exponent. It's in parentheses. So 3 has a power of 1, x has a power of 2. We're raising each of these to the -1. So we're going to multiply every exponent by the -1. So I have 3 to the -1 times x to the -2. Before I substitute in the -4 for x, I am going to clear up these negative exponents. So both of these factors need to be moved to the denominator. So I have 3 raised to the +1 now times x raised to the +2. Now we can substitute in -4 for x. -4 times -4 is 16. And then 3 times 16 is 48. So we have 1 over 48. Okay, now you guys are going to practice 1 through 18 and then check your answers.